Hello, I'm Brett Weber. I serve on the Grand Forks City Council and I'm the president of the city's Jobs Development Authority. I'm joined today by Mayor Brown, Jonathan Holt, the local business owner and the vice chair of the committee that advises the JDA, Keith Lund, the executive director of the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation, Barry Wilford, president and CEO of the Grand Forks East Grand Forks Chamber of Commerce, and Blue Weber of the Grand Forks DDA. I know we are a resilient community. I also understand that our toughest days are still ahead of us. Like the assassination of President Kennedy, the falling of the Twin Towers on 9/11, or the last episode of the Game of Thrones, those of us living through this time are likely to remember it the rest of our lives. Here in Grand Forks, we're going to remember that we came together and supported one another. Grand Forks and the state of North Dakota have moved quickly in relation to COVID-19, and that's going to help us in the long term. Additionally, we have strong collaborative systems in place to bolster our resiliency. Grand Forks' business community has the ability to handle adversity and to recover quickly from difficult times. After we survive the current crises of COVID, the flood, and the economic challenges that you were at the forefront of, we will engage a social and economic recovery plan. These listening sessions are the first step in surviving the crises and developing the long-term plan for our successful future. These sessions are meant to gather information from you, the business community, about exactly what those challenges are and to hear your ideas for solutions and support. We will share those ideas with our state and federal partners as they have requested. And together, we will guide them as they develop and package resources to deal with the COVID-19 crisis. At the same time, we can't just wait for the state or the feds to come to our rescue. With your help today, we are beginning to shape our local approach to economic recovery. We're going to start by providing a very brief overview of the limited information we currently have. Then, most importantly, we want to spend today hearing from you about specific issues, concerns, or questions you have related to this crisis. This can't be about us providing answers to all of your questions. Instead, this will be the first of several meetings. And as we learn more about your challenges, we'll dig deeper into whatever issues you bring up today and work to move the ball forward. Here's how this is going to work. First, as you may have noticed, all participants aside from the few panelists are muted. This is to address the logistics of bringing so many people together and to ensure that nobody's talking over one another. We're going to be utilizing the chat function as our main means of hearing from you. So if you could take a moment now and hover your cursor toward the bottom of the screen, you'll see a toolbar open up. And in that toolbar is the chat function. Click on that and that will open a chat bar on the right-hand side of your screen. Please open that and feel free to enter any questions, comments, concerns, or issues you have. We'll then try to cover as many of those as possible in the limited time we have. But additionally, the chat window allows us to retain a transcript of all the questions asked. That way we won't miss anything and we'll have an opportunity to follow up and record your questions and concerns. And again, this is the first of what we're intending as a series of these sessions of interaction. Now, I'd like to give the panelists an opportunity to provide a quick summary of the most pertinent background information we currently understand in terms of existing supports and plans for future programs or anything else that they might wish to share at this time. Mr. Holt, Jonathan Holt, local business owner.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. I'll just make a couple comments here. I know that many of you have faced some impossible leadership decisions in the past week. And in our industry, in the food and beverage industry, there were some significant hits that happened really fast. So I just want to take a moment to just thank you all for making some of those decisions. These are, with all of these industries that we're talking to, and our industry is no exception, it's wrestling with a community decision and a business decision all at once, and you're all charged with taking care of many employees. And if you're like me, you felt in the past few days unable to do that to the best of your ability, and that's really difficult. So I just want to say that I know that some of these community decisions have felt really difficult in the short term to do, but I think we all recognize that looking at this with the long game in mind and the long term, that this is the right thing to do for our community, practicing social distancing and practicing keeping large gatherings from happening, that we'll be able to recover quicker when that time comes. So I just wanted to just make a couple of comments and just say thank you to all of you for being a part of this community and for working to take care of your employees in the face of adversity that was full of impossible decisions. We empathize with you. We recognize those decisions are difficult, and we want to start today by just listening and hearing from you on what that's been like and what we can all do to band together to move forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan. Have we been joined by Mayor Brown yet? I know that he was in a press conference. He may still be finishing up with that. Keith Lund from the EDC.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for your leadership, Brett, in pulling this together. And if the mayor's not on, someone let him know that I thanked him as well for his leadership in the community. I'm Keith Lund, President and CEO of the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation. Thanks for all who have joined us. I've been asked to provide just a real high-level overview of some of the resources that are available, and it will be quick and it will be high-level, and willing to take questions. And I'm available on the web. My phone number, I'm in the office so people can get a hold of me. Number one, a number of organizations, including our local chamber, state chamber, the city, the EDC, many others, are hosting COVID-19 business response and resource pages. The EDC has one as well, accessible at www.grandforks.org. So I encourage you to just stay tuned. We update that every time there's an update that we're aware of. So just make sure that you're accessing the most recent information. We're in conversations and communications many times a day with the Commerce Department of North Dakota, and we're taking many of our cues and getting much of our information from them. In terms of resources for business response, their advice is to work with your local lender first, and I've been asked to inject that in the conversation. Your local lender knows you, understands your business needs, in many cases has collateral on your businesses, and is in the best position to respond rapidly to your needs. May not be able to get you all the way, but they're going to be there and able to support you more quickly. If that is not sufficient, or if that isn't going to work, then the next step really is the SBA loans that you've been hearing about. I think we have a slide. I'm not sure if we can get that up right now that just gives the high-level points of what the SBA program is about. There we go. Thank you very much. Businesses are eligible for up to $2 million, and you see the working capital uses in response to COVID-19. One of the attractive aspects of this program is a fixed rate for up to 30 years, so 3.75%. One of the eligibility criteria is that you cannot be eligible for other loans, which means you really have to look into the local lending option first. SBA, we're told that SBA loan officers will be directing people locally if they feel that it could be handled at a local level. While not required, there is technical assistance available at the Small Business Development Center. Nicole Evans at the SBDC, and her contact information, both email and phone number, is available on the screen right there. So please, she's expecting to have many calls and help support folks as they apply for this. These loans are on a first come, first served basis. So folks who are interested, the Commerce Department and we are all encouraging folks to apply as quickly as possible. Moving all along, just recently, and we have very little information on this, but I'm going to hit this at a high point. Congress just passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, so CARES program. A couple of high-level points. So again, we don't know the process to follow, but a new loan program has been approved. Businesses with less than 500 employees are eligible to receive fee-free, not interest fee, but fee-free loans of up to $10 million. To support a whole host of working capital needs, including debt obligations that were incurred before March 1st of this year. Of great interest to you who have employees, there will also be direct cash payments to individuals, up to $1,200 for individuals and up to $2,400 for joint tax filers. This will be based on the 2018 tax return. I don't have that news release didn't indicate how quickly those checks would come out, but I anticipate that they would be coming out rather quickly. If an individual makes more than 75,000 or a family more than 150 in terms of their adjusted income, there will be some proration of that, but those resources will be coming out rather quickly, I expect. One more, a couple other real quick things, and then we'll get to the conversation. The state of North Dakota, through the North Dakota Chamber, has been hosting business update calls with state agencies. There is one on Thursday at 11 a.m. Greater North Dakota Chamber is hosting this, and it's focused on business disaster financing. So any folks on this call, I would think, would be very interested in that. Registration is available on their webpage. Little trick, register as a non-member, even if you are, and you'll get in a little bit more quickly. The last thing I'd like to comment, and then I'll be done here quickly. I've been in conversation recently with representatives from North Dakota Department of Commerce, and they were going to be socializing a survey to North Dakota businesses that it's relatively short, but what they're trying to do and what we're trying to do with this call is learn from you what the best response possible could be. And they're going to use the information to understand how North Dakota businesses are being affected and what means of support would be best to support those businesses. So I encourage you to have a good conversation and input today. I also encourage you, and we'll get that out, and I'm sure many others on this call will get this out, but we encourage you to participate in that survey. The state of North Dakota, the governor is a real fan of data-driven decisions, so the data that's collected through this survey is going to be key in determining a state response. They'll also be able to provide, get a sense of where people need additional support in terms of information or education. They report that they'll be doing webinars and other educational sessions about key issues that you're concerned about. I know that was quick, but I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to the conversation and the input.
Very good. Thank you. Blue Weber from the Grand Forks DDA.
Yeah, all I want to say is my phone is open 24/7. Please do not hesitate to call with questions. Maintain that supporting local. These businesses are the backbone of our community, and they've all worked tireless hours to kind of meet up with the changing demand. And so the least we can all do is order dinner, lunch, and breakfast from all of them and make sure you're supporting them.
Very good. And Mayor Brown has just finished his press conference. He's not with us on video, but he can join us by phone. Mayor Brown.
Let's fix this.
You're on, Mayor.
Oh, yes, this is an opportunity to listen to the concerns of the business community. I did emphasize in my 2:15 meeting to buy local, shop local, attend local when you can. I think it's important we support them because they support us all the time with everything else they do in our community to make this community, this place, a special place to live. So I'm anxious to see what we can, with the problems we have, how we can listen as a government and how we can help people get through this.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks for your leadership both and your support for these listening sessions. And then Barry Wilford from the Grand Forks, East Grand Forks Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, Brett, and thank my other partners on the call here today for helping put this all together. I think this is very important. As a chamber, we're very concerned about both the physical and economic health of our community. Keeping as much commerce flowing as long as we can is obviously very, very important for the future of our community. To assist with that economic health of the community, the chamber partnered last week with the Grand Forks Herald to establish a listing of Grand Forks business hours in special circumstances. The Herald's published this list several times and also has it on their website. It's updated on a regular basis, so keep sending updates to businesshours@gfherald.com. On Facebook, there are a number of other local businesses that also have information like this, and please stay tuned on Facebook and put your listing and changes in your business on there as well. We also sent out links to apply for unemployment for any employees that you may have needed to lay off. In last Friday's member-to-member, both the Minnesota and North Dakota links are in there. Keeping people with an income stream to the extent possible is also very important at this time. So I'd encourage people to make sure that any employees that they have needed to lay off have those links so that they can make that application for unemployment just as quickly as possible. Finally, keep supporting our local businesses. We all need to work together and we'll get through this together.
Fantastic. On that note of supporting local businesses, one trick we can all use, we may not need things right now or be able to visit some of our favorite local shops, but you can always buy a gift certificate online. That's kind of a zero interest loan that you could be giving to your local businesses, and then you can redeem that further down the road. With that, I'm starting to see some questions pop up, and we're hoping to see more. Colette Eisenmenger from the Grand Forks Senior Center concerned about the lag time for delivery for seniors and the low number of phone orders. Again, we're not here to answer all those questions today, but I'm already getting emails from Cheryl Simeone over at the Public Information Center working on that. The city does have a website that's being shared by the Herald and also put out by Grand Forks Community Support, the Facebook page, letting people know the latest information about grocery stores, senior hours, and things of that sort. So we'll get some information about phone orders for seniors and get that posted as quickly as possible. I see that Barry was saying something. Barry?
Yeah, Brett, can I make a quick follow-up on your gift certificate comment that you made?
Please.
We do encourage people to purchase gift certificates from local businesses. I just want to give a little tip. If you purchase them from the corporate website, if they're like a franchise, the credit for that sale oftentimes goes to the corporate level and actually isn't helping the local business. So make sure if you are buying a gift certificate, you're doing it on the Grand Forks, East Grand Forks business website and not on a corporate website if they're a franchise.
Very good. Thanks, Barry. That's terribly important. Also, we have a question now. Someone asking, Jonathan Christensen is asking about unemployment. And Barry and Keith, I think you've both posted some information about this, but can you give us some information now about unemployment posting?
Barry?
I can follow up. I can follow up with that if he posts his email out there or just wants to give the Chamber of Commerce office a call. Just give me a call and leave me a message, and I can get you the link both for Minnesota and North Dakota. And my number is 701-317-1555. Just leave a voice. My phone's always with me. And right after this meeting is over, I will respond with the links for both states for you.
Very good.
And I can answer maybe that a little bit more too. John, I'll actually text you with Barry, so that way you have his number on that as well.
Perfect. I've got it here now too.
Good. John has posted that his email address there. So we have Peggy Anderson asking from Andy's HD marketing manager, is there a list of restaurants that are in need of support that we can share on our website? We unfortunately are seeing a sudden decrease in customers, especially our neighbors to the north. Does the DDA or Chamber have a list of restaurants?
The Herald has a really good exhaustive list currently. And so if you go to the Herald's website, they have a pretty exhaustive list. We have a pretty large number of our partners and members downtown as well. And then I know the CVB has also created a good list. Another thing to kind of plug in here is the GFK Community Support Group on Facebook. A lot of questions and a lot of answers have been posted there as well on what businesses are doing pickup, delivery, stuff like that.
That's been a very good site.
Thanks for your work on that, by the way, Barry, both you and Corey Wenzel from the Herald. One of the very first questions we had comes from Kyle over at Archives on campus. And he's struggling both with the same economic challenges as everyone else, but his market is the university. He's currently pursuing an SBA loan and wondering if there's other support to help, especially with rent or other fixed costs. Barry or Keith, are there resources you can point him towards as that's developing?
I can jump in. I mean, right now, local lender, SBA, and then the new financing that's available through the CARES Act. I think one of the things that I'd like to hear from this group, again, the state is looking to state businesses in particular to understand how they can best respond. I don't, that's no guarantee that they can do everything that people want to see, but if there are common themes across all of these industries, we're having 4 calls, I think people realize. And so if there is, if you want to go down and suggest something through the comment that we can move up the chain to the Department of Commerce, we would be glad to do so. I also think that, you know, the mayor is here, and Brett, chair of the Growth Fund, and Jonathan is vice chair. You know, this is information that we'd want to take into consideration too, and listen to the needs. So, but I'm not aware of anything other than what's been offered to this point that's available.
On a similar note, Justin LaRock has posted that he's heard, and I don't know about this, perhaps Barry could confirm this, or Keith. He's been told that the city of East Grand Forks is offering EDA loans now at 1%, but only as gap loans. He's asking if Grand Forks has a similar program. We do have programs through the JDA, not those specific programs at this time, but this is the kind of information we're hoping to collect so that we can go to the state or the feds to see what kind of resources might be available. And depending on what we learn from them, we may consider local solutions to gaps in that safety net that's being provided.
Well, I also noticed there's a comment out there from Kyle, just in terms of, you know, how much business debt is hard to absorb, not hard to absorb. That's all good input, because I think there are going to be a lot of programs that are going to continue to evolve as this continues to go forward. And as we look at ways, as you know, government business partnerships to try to figure out how we can keep as many of our businesses doing as well as we can. And also look at, you know, where are we going to be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road as a business community as we all work through this. So good, we're getting some good feedback here, I see in the chat room. And I think that a lot of that feedback will really help some of our state leaders in particular develop some programs.
Right, good point. For those who are just joining us, Keith Lund from the EDC had told us a moment ago about the Department of Commerce has a survey out, a business survey, and he's encouraging people to complete that. This is the kind of information that they're looking for. And in fact, Keith, would you talk about the way that the state, especially Department of Commerce, has been seeking this kind of information from communities like ours?
Happy to, Brett. Thank you. And just to clarify, this survey isn't out yet, but they hope to by the end of the week, maybe even the middle, but by the end of the week for sure. So the state Department of Commerce, really with their partner, the Greater North Dakota Chamber, has been hosting, well, last week was the first, and this coming Thursday will be the second, state agency updates in terms of how the state is responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Last week, it was pretty all-encompassing, so you heard from individuals related to business, to health, to unemployment. This Thursday, they'll be having a specific input session related to business financing, business disaster financing. In addition, another component of the call on this Thursday will be unemployment. So I know that there's a number of questions that are rolling that are related to that. So it would be very good for folks to be a part of that. The North Dakota Department of Commerce will get a survey out, and it'll be hosted on their website. They're going to work through the various partners throughout the state, including our organization. We'll get out to everyone in our contact list. They want to know, you know, they want to categorize different businesses that are being impacted, and they'll likely be all, but they want to categorize those, how many employees you have, what types of impacts you're having. Are they customer related, supply chain related? Likely all of them. And really, there's a section that talks about what can the state do. What are the best ideas? And they have a number of ideas, and they're asking for the top 2 or 3, I don't remember, but they're going to want to see which things sort of really rise to the tops in terms of what North Dakota businesses are saying and how the state should respond. And I think it's really important, number one, that you provide the feedback to us on this call, because we're going to provide that at a high level to our partners. But to get this information into the state's database, you need to respond to the survey. This administration is very data driven. And to the degree that we can complete these things and get this information into a database, the better likelihood we'll have a response that meets the needs of businesses that are providing the feedback. Is that what you're looking for, Brett?
Exactly. Thanks, Keith. And a quick reminder, it's not the intention of this session to be providing a lot of answers, but you'll find that in the chat box, already people are sharing some information that may be relevant. If you don't already have it open, if you hover your cursor over the bottom of the screen, you'll see a toolbar pop up. That'll include a link to the chat box, which will open you up to the conversation that's happening on the right-hand side of the screen, including Adam Kurtz from the Herald has posted a story about unemployment. Warren Saee has asked about the Growth Fund meeting. We were scheduled to have a Growth Fund meeting this afternoon. This is the advisory committee to the Jobs Development Authority. That was canceled as things have been rapidly developing. As far as I know, our current intention is to hold a Growth Fund meeting on April 6th, but everything is so dynamic right now. So I would ask that you follow the city's website, and Warren and anyone else who's curious about that, we'll be sure to get information out to you about the scheduling for the next Growth Fund. In addition, let's see, Rachel Franz from Ellie's Ivy mentioning some very specific inventory that some of our eating establishments are dealing with. Tapped kegs of beer or other inventory that has a very short shelf life. Is there a chance to allow temporary off sale for restaurants as well as bars? Again, we're not able to answer all the questions here today. This is about gathering those kinds of questions so they can be considered. That would be something that would need consultation with the city attorney and consideration by the entire council and mayor. So thanks for posting those kinds of things. That's the type of question, information, concern that we're looking for in the chat box right now. And noted that Paul Gort from the East Grand Forks EDA, they're also welcoming contact there, so you can see his email. And you're welcome, Warren. Jonathan, perhaps you could talk for a moment about some of the specific challenges of the restaurant business during this time.
Yeah, where to begin? I mean, I think there's, what you've seen in the chat box here is something that all of these things I think are on every restaurant person's mind right now. And, we in the restaurant community, we're we were forced to look at changing business models really overnight and trying to squeeze out every dollar of revenue possible. So I just want to echo that a lot of the concern, Rachel's last question is something that I've heard from a number of restaurant people. So I think that we need to look at that quickly too. We've got perishable inventory and there's some restrictions depending upon what licenses we all have in terms of what we can and can't sell. And we've seen examples across the country of other states doing things in these times too. I think that this is the type of feedback we need to provide to our state leadership as well as city leadership. And I think too, with Kyle's comments earlier, I think there are just a lot of people, we work in a low margin industry. So there's just not a lot of wiggle room here. So the notion that the sole answer to get out of this for us is to take on more debt, I think that's a lot of people, myself included, that are struggling with that. That isn't necessarily, especially considering knowing that even if that debt gets us out of a hole temporarily, when we get back up to full operations, that the economy and our customer base may not have a ton of expendable income to come out and spend in restaurants right away. So we're looking at, a forecast here where just because we can open back up and operate as normal sometime in the near future doesn't mean that it was going to be business as usual before this all happened. So I think that's a concern for a lot of people too, which there again, if we're taking on more debt, regardless of the terms and regardless of the rates, it's not a necessarily long-term solution for us here. So, I've been compiling a lot of this information. I think these are conversations that we're going to be having at the growth fund level with the chamber, with city leadership, passing this on to state leadership. And I would just encourage all of you that are putting questions in to keep them coming to us. The panelists that are up here are in constant communication with each other and are sharing information. So it's all going into one bucket that we can pass on to leadership. We don't have, as Brett and Barry and Keith and others have pointed out, we don't have a lot of answers right now because this is sort of a new frontier for most of us. But we felt this was a pretty important first step, is to just hear from all of you and gather all of this information so we could start to work on solutions sooner rather than later, because we also recognize the time sensitivity of this too. And that, as we're getting new information every day, you all are evaluating your business and what to do next on an hour-by-hour basis. So we recognize all of that. Please keep the information coming so we can all sort of work together to figure out what to do next.
Wonderful. I see a great deal of appreciation for those comments from you, Jonathan, in the chat box. At the risk of sounding Pollyannish, while this current situation is creating a terrible crisis for traditional business models, it may also be opening up some opportunities, and we need to look for ways to pivot different businesses that can serve some of those opportunities. For instance, Colette at the Senior Center is asking if the Chamber has email lists for restaurants or other food service operations, that it might be possible to use kitchens, commercial kitchens, for preparing senior meals in the event that cooks get sick or other needs of that sort. So we need to keep watching for things of that sort as well.
One thing that I can add on to some of those other pieces that has already been said once is first person to reach out to in this whole scenario is your local lender, to kind of resonate with what Keith had said. They know your situation best, and it's all so unknown for all of us, for them as well. But at least I had a nice phone call with a couple of our financial institutions in downtown this morning, talking about what some of the things that they're looking at. And so they want to be heard from too. They want to be talking to you as well. So if you haven't already called them, I highly recommend giving them a call and having a conversation.
I'm seeing a question about the Legacy Fund. The city's legislative committee is meeting tomorrow morning. And one of the real great assets we have in this community is Team Grand Forks. If you're not familiar with that, a lot of gratitude to Barry from the Chamber for his leadership on this collaborative legislative approach. We're not making any promises or anything of that sort today, but one of the purposes of these meetings is to take this information forward, probably not to the legislature. They're not in session right now, but we intend to be working directly with the governor and department heads. So kind of an attempt to answer that. Also, a request for the city to consider some sort of modification to Grand Forks utilities billing, especially around garbage and recycling pickup.
Brett, can I just comment on the Legacy Fund? I have talked to a couple legislators already, and I see that Dana Sandy just suggested that he would be surprised if the governor didn't call a special session. I think that all of those things are on the potential table, and any of those things could certainly happen. This is one of those times that if there's a rainy day, this is probably the rainy day from a Legacy Fund perspective, and I'm certain that that'll get a lot of discussion by a lot of our local legislators.
Barry, would you mind taking a quick moment? I didn't give it enough of a description. Could you talk about Team Grand Forks?
Sure. Team Grand Forks, it's a partnership between the Chamber, City, County, EDC, UND. We have members from each of those.
We have a little problem with connection for Barry Wilford there. Team Grand Forks is a combination of the city, county, and let's see, we have the Airport Authority and UND. Those are the main partners, but the purpose of Team Grand Forks is that Grand Forks goes to the state not with a list of demands, but with a list of solutions to problems, and we go with a unified voice. It's part of the collaborative nature that we've developed in the community. Barry has been an important leader in that. And I see Representative Adams has mentioned that from the last session, there are 4 available days for a session, and that is already being discussed, as Council President Sandy had suggested was a likelihood. If any restaurant has extra food they'd like to make into entrees that we can use for Meals on Wheels and our drive-through meal service, we would be able to purchase those. Oh, so there's an opportunity. I don't know how we would make that connection. If the chamber could be the main go-between, or maybe there is no need for a go-between. Perhaps restaurants could, on this call, could just contact Colette Eisenminger at the Grand Forks Senior Center directly.
Brett, I see Mark Schill just responded, and I was going to jump in with this, but I've been watching the governor's press conferences at 4 o'clock daily, and as Mark indicated in his comments, the governor, I don't know if downplayed was the right word, but it's not a bad word. The governor wants to decouple the solution from the funding source. So I think that emphasizes the importance to communicate what you think the best solution is. There's the Bank of North Dakota, there's reserves and various funds across the state in addition to the legacy funds. So, regardless of where that money lies, I think providing the feedback through this and other channels is extremely important. And then, elected leadership will then, identify the programs that have the most value, and then identify the funding sources for those programs.
Very good. Mark Schill also echoing your comments about the Department of Commerce survey. Once that's available, Keith, do we have some sort of idea of when that would be available and where it would be available?
The soonest would be Wednesday, but they want it out this week. So that means Friday to me. So sometime this week. And they will host it on their site, and they'll work with their various partners across the state. I would imagine most of them would be cities, counties, economic development organizations like ours, possibly chambers, certainly the North Dakota Chamber. And we would all send that out through our contact list. So any business on this call may very well get that survey opportunity 4 times. They're looking for 1 response per business so they can categorize those.
So the main purpose of these listening sessions is for us to develop the set of questions, concerns, challenges that you as business owners are facing right now, so that those can be packaged and taken to the governor, to the state, as they're going through their decision process. On a lighter note, I noticed that Colette is open to the idea of helping you with some of your inventory, probably not able to help with those open kegs of beer, but yeah. All right, the intention is to try to keep going with these listening sessions. This is the first one. Our intention is that today was primarily focused on food issues. Tomorrow would have a greater emphasis on retail outside of the food industry. Wednesday will be for manufacturing, and Thursday for professional services. Additionally, there's the possibility that similar listening sessions can be used to address the interests and the needs of the nonprofit community, the arts community, the faith community, or other sectors of our community. If this seems useful, you could type that in and let us know, or if there's something that you would like to see done differently during these listening sessions, that would also be helpful. There's some good information being shared, but we're also looking for those kinds of specific issues and concerns, questions that you have. Meredith, do you have anything to add from the city, from the mayor's office? I don't know if the mayor is still with us. We lost Barry, it looks like, hoping that he can get reconnected.
I'd just like to thank all our partners for the participation, and of course, everybody who signed in to participate from a business point of view. Absolutely, we are looking for feedback on how this media works in terms of a way for businesses to provide their concerns, thoughts, ideas, solutions to local leaders to turn those ideas into programs or policy.
And if you haven't noticed, Council President Sandy giving a very important word of caution about misinformation. There is a great deal of misinformation out there. One of the purposes of these listening sessions is to try to provide a source for reliable information. Well, we have over 100 participants, which I'm very excited about, but maybe not everyone knows how to type into the chat box. Again, I'll just give this one more shot. If you hover your cursor near the bottom of the screen, you'll see a chat link there. Click on that and it'll open up the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. We'd love to hear from you.
And I both hear from you on what we can be doing to advocate local level, state level, whatever we can be doing. Please do not hesitate to reach out with questions, comments, things like that. This is where we want to hear them.
And Adam, you're asking for examples of bad information. You did a story recently on grocery stores. My understanding is we've sold nearly 6 months worth of toilet paper in just the last week or two. That kind of, the sort of rumors out there that supplies are going to be halted to local grocers, that kind of false information can be really damaging. It's not true, but it creates panic buying so that the people who need supplies are not able to get them.
Another piece of misinformation that I think is important is always watching the North Dakota Department of Health. Don't always just hear what a Facebook friend has to say about positive cases. Really heavily watch that Department of Health page. They're being very, very vigilant on keeping that updated. And so make sure that that's where you're getting a lot of information about those cases from.
Very good. All right. Well, we can keep the chat box going for a little bit. And if people want to continue to type things in there, we can keep this link open. Otherwise, any other closing comments from any of the panel members, or if there's anybody in the audience that has something specific that they'd like to share?
I will say this is a tough time both for businesses in the financial side of things, but also it's a very tough emotional time for all of us because it's kind of unknown and everybody's very stressed. And so I will say my cell phone number is on our website. Please, please do not hesitate to reach out, be it to just talk about what we're going through, anything like that, or to send ideas or things like that. Please, please reach out to me.
I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it seems like our listenership has, looks like I froze. Can you hear me?
We can hear you still, Keith.
Okay, fine. Our listenership has grown, so I just wanted to, a lot of the questions have to do with unemployment insurance, and the state chamber's call today, or on Thursday, is going to be focused on business emergency financing as well as unemployment insurance. So I really encourage people to participate participate in that. Secondly, I think it's very important to keep, and we will certainly do this, but keep watching as the details of the CARES. The CARES is again just passed by Congress today, the Corona Aid Relief and Economic Security Act that provides small business loans for up to $10 million for businesses. There's a component of that I failed to mention when I first talked about it. And again, we don't know any details of how to access it and what agency is going to be administering it, but there is a provision that forgives some of those loans for companies who maintain employees on their payroll March 1st through June 30th. So there's a portion of that could very well act like a grant according to this press release that came out earlier today. So there's information that is being unveiled all the time. So it's good to be vigilant and keep on top of those things.
Very good. Mr. Holt.
One thing that I was going to add, and I'm going to volunteer Blue for something here without seeking his permission, so I hope that's okay, Blue. But as I've looked, Rachel brought up something about licensure earlier, Rachel from Ellie's Ivy, and I think that as businesses have had to pivot sort of their business models, we've started to see governments try to be as agile as possible with helping with some of that. And what I've seen across the country where changes have been made, it's when an industry collectively in a community or state has come forward with recommendations to government officials versus say 10 of us on this call, each going individually with slightly different recommendations. So I think it'll be important as we try to work together here. We're obviously, many of us are competitors with each other, but these times are a little bit different than normal, that we try to come up maybe with some industry-wide solutions in our community that could be presented to city leadership that could help all of us or help a large number of us. So I would encourage all of you, maybe using Blue as the point person, to sort of stay in contact with each other and maybe funnel some of these thoughts towards Blue, that Blue can then bring forward to city leadership and to state leadership, saying, hey, this is what the industry is saying together collectively. I just think that's more powerful. We've seen changes in other states. Chicago specifically, I've seen changes where groups of chefs have gotten together and collectively come forward. So Blue, I hope that's okay, but I think we should try to all stay in touch with each other and try to come up with solutions for our industry as a whole moving forward, recognizing that we all have little differences here, but I just think that we'll be able to make more progress if we can do it that way, if at all possible.
No, I welcome those. And I was talking with Scott yesterday on this, and I asked him to actually come and speak about this here as well. But please, I say that to not just our partners, members downtown, but anybody who's a business in town. This is something that we really want to be able to help for and advocate on behalf of. So bring up more of those ideas, and we'll bring them out to the city, and we'll bring them out as much as we can to the forefront to try to help.
Fantastic. There's been a number of links have been posted in the chat box. Other good sources of information, always the CDC, the State Department of Health. I'd also encourage people to either catch it live or the recordings of the mayor's daily press conferences at 2:15 and the governor's daily press conferences at 4 o'clock. And with that, we've gone for about 50 minutes here. Keith has kind of given his closing. Looks like we've lost Barry, but I thank you all for coming on out.
Hey, Brett.
Yes, please, Barry.
Oh yeah, Brett, I'm still here. Say, I see that the mayor and Pete Hager are both watching here, and I think that's an immediate action item for the city of Grand Forks, is to look at what type of changes are permissible under state law. I think the last thing we want to see is have any of our bars and restaurants have any unused inventory, and anything we can do to open that regulatorily up immediately is just absolutely got to be a #1 priority. And, I'd urge the mayor and Pete and you as, a city council member to follow up on that immediately. Our restaurants and bars really need some help and some relief from this.
And we have Council President Sandy has joined the session as well. So I'm sure that we'll all be, thanks for that urging. Yes.
And we can put that issue to the city attorney and get the wheels in motion on an answer for that.
City staff are having intense daily meetings as this whole situation is rapidly developing, and the city is looking for the kind of information and needs that we can act on with all possible dispatch. So thanks to everyone who's attended. Thanks to the panel members. Mayor Brown, anything in closing that you'd like to add? Very good. I'm not sure if the mayor is still with us or if he had some other business. So with that, he had to leave. Very good. All right. Thanks. Watch for future notices. Tomorrow, there will be a listening session, the same thing with a focus on retail. Wednesday, a similar session with a focus on manufacturing. Thursday, professional services. There may be additional listening sessions for other sectors of the community, nonprofit, arts, faith. Otherwise, let the city know if there are issues that you'd like us to consider, either in this sort of format or something else. And thank you all for your time today.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.